All right, Bulls and Bears. Hope everyone's doing well. We're back with another dose of economic reality. My name is JJ. You're watching Bull, Boom, Bear, Bust. And the Economic Edge report today is going to include, I'm going to start right here, banks. We've got the regulators out there preparing right now for another, what to me looks like a massive set of bank failures. I shouldn't say set, that only sounds like a couple. It could be a lot. In fact, we just had the FDIC come out recently warning about 63 banks, right? And not just 63 locations, 63 banks with each of them having, many, many different locations and branches. Let's start right here, though, out of Reuters. Top U.S. regulator argues for recovery planning to address potential bank failures. Folks, they are preparing for it is obvious something must be done to prevent the harm these failures cause. Indeed, the too big to fail concept needs to be replaced by recovery planning to protect the interests of those with a financial interest in the banks. So obviously, if they're doing recovery planning, they know, and I'm talking about the regulators, they know that the banks are insolvent, right? If you and I know, then of course they know. For the powers that be, the quote unquote leaders, the talking heads to go out there, like you have Jerome Powell, for him to go out there and say the banking sector is strong, when he knows the banks do not hold even 1%, not even 1% of the capital that they have loaned out, right? There's no requirement for the banks now to hold anything and they can still loan out money. Why? Because it's not actually physical money, it's just digits on a screen. They create billions and trillions of dollars at the click of a mouse. Therefore, they can loan out money to you, which you have to pay for and work to pay back. They get to loan it out at the click of a button, folks. That's a big secret that they don't want you to know. So, for those of you that are in doubt that the banking sector is in big, big trouble, just ask yourself, why? Why, if the banking sector wasn't in trouble, why would we see headlines like this? U.S. regulators argue for recovery planning to address bank failures. Right, so it's obvious, and it is getting some more press now, which is nice. Let's talk about some other details with the economy that have everything to do with the way that money can just be poured out into the economy, can be loaned out. AP is reporting 7,000 zombie companies exist worldwide. 2,000 of those companies exist here in the United States. And it recently soared to 7,000, right? So as I had said here before many times, things continue to get worse. Now, what do these banks do? What makes them a zombie company? Well, that means they're only able to remain operational by borrowing more money to pay off their existing debt obligations. In fact, some of these companies can't even afford to pay off the interest on their loans, on their debt. So in other words, their profits aren't enough to even pay the interest on the debt that they took out to go into business and stay into business, right? So it's defined as a zombie company because basically it's not a company that's going to be around very long. And when you look at the list here, here's some of the headlines here. Takeaways from AP analysis on the rise of the world's debt-laden zombie companies. And this was put out by AP. And here's how they explain it right here. Many of them will soon face a day of reckoning. With due dates looming and hundreds of billions of dollars of loans they will likely not be able to pay back. They're going to get crushed, said Valens Securities Direct Manager Robert Spivey. Zombie companies are defined as companies that have failed to make enough money from operations in the past 3 years to pay even the interest on their loans. The numbers have swelled because low interest rates for years allowed companies to pile on plenty of cheap debt, only to be whiplashed by stubborn inflation that has pushed borrowing costs to decade highs. AP's analysis found their ranks in raw numbers have jumped over the past decade by a third. U.S. companies including Carnival Cruise Lines, JetBlue Airlines, Wayfair, Peloton, Manchester United, just to name a few. So, folks, this is, again, an example of what we've been talking about here for a long, long time. This economy is only functional because of the debt operations, the issuance of debt, right? Until that gets pulled back or yanked out, the economy is going to continue to chug right along. Yes, you're going to see inflation get worse and worse and worse, but you're not going to see the massive crash or tsunami that many people have predicted. In fact, remember June 9th, yesterday, was the date that I said would not be anything. I said it was going to be a nothing burger. We did a report on it last week, citing how many people said June 9th was going to be the collapse of the dollar because Saudi Arabia is no longer accepting dollars for oil. I told you it wasn't going to happen that quickly, right? Things take longer to play out, right? For there to be a collapse, you have to have a complete rug pull. That means the entire grid goes down, the banks go down. Could that happen? Well, it's very likely with all the global conflicts and wars that we're seeing right now, right? So be on alert for that and prepare for that. But I wouldn't run to the hills, hide under the cover, so to speak, because I don't think we're going to see some sort of crash without something major bringing it down. Just think 2020 with the implementation of the health crisis. That's the type of situation that has to pop up in order to just stop everything in its tracks and to have some sort of collapse. Now, it's really, really interesting as the cost of living continues to punish people and punish businesses. We have more companies, more businesses looking to send jobs out of the U.S. completely. The latest one is an American staple, especially across the Midwest and the farming states, farmlands. We have John Deere. John Deere rolls out hundreds of layoffs here in the U.S. and they're sending more jobs to Mexico. So laying off in the U.S., sending more jobs to Mexico. Agricultural equipment company plans to move production out of the country and move that's condemned by workers, of course. So more people in the unemployment line losing their jobs to outsourcing. The company is famous for its green tractors. That's true. You can drive across the Midwest and especially the farmlands, Indiana, Kentucky, Iowa, states like that. Every house you almost see has a John Deere tractor parked out there somewhere. Green tractors with the bright yellow wheels. I'm sure all of you have seen them. We get wind of more layoffs daily. It seems that it's causing uncertainty, right? Imagine somebody just taking out a loan, all of a sudden you're laid off, and now you've got to find a new job, and maybe you have to find a completely new industry because as manufacturing jobs continue to die off, you're not going to have the same type of job available maybe within a 100-mile radius, right? You work in a factory, and that's the only factory of whatever it happens to be making, right? How many John Deere factories are there? How many other factory manufacturers are there, right? Not that many. So a lot of these people are going to be running out of options completely, and maybe they'll have to go into fast food. Who knows? But it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this continues to play out. And when it comes to John Deere, this recent announcement, comes on the heels of 250 layoffs last October. And earlier this year, here in 2024, 650 jobs were cut out of John Deere's plants in Iowa. And another 103 workers took early retirement due to a settlement that they reached with the company. Now, something that's really, really interesting is what's happening up in Oregon. If you've been on this channel, you know that I've been warning about this. So many people from California, exodus, left the state, went to neighboring states, including Oregon, Arizona, many even as far away as Texas, Florida. Many of these states saw a huge influx of Californians coming to their state. And what do we say was going to happen? They're bringing California with them. They're bringing the high costs with them as well. Take a look at Bend, Oregon now. Home prices have become so unaffordable there, homes and rents. Look at what's happening on some of the streets. I'm going to play this video.
Welcome to Bend, Oregon.
And this is a street, as you can see, just lined with homeless, campers, RVs, tents. These people are basically living out of their RVs. Obviously, they're not parked in a camping ground. They're not able to pay for a campground, looks like. That's why you see so many of these just on the streets. They're just driving along, and just dozens and dozens and dozens of RVs lining the streets, folks. Just more of what we said was going to happen is happening. And guess what? There's no signs of this getting any better. They're going to continue to flood the economy with money that they'll just click a mouse and put out there. In the meantime, people are buried under debt. We've got the tsunami breaking point for the U.S. consumer that's approaching. Many have already reached their breaking point. You just haven't seen it played out yet. Sure, you see it with all the campers on the side of the road, but you haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg yet. This is going to get a lot worse, right? So I'm actually hoping for some sort of rapid collapse, rug pull, grid down scenario, outage, just to get this thing over with and just put all the cards on the table so everybody can see what's going on. So there's not any mystery or um, any of the questions. You know, people don't actually believe that things are bad right now. Many people don't because they just look at the phony numbers that are put out there in the news, talked about by the leaders, politicians. People are eating this right up for the most part. We haven't even got halfway through the year yet. We're in June. A few more weeks, we'll be halfway through the year. And what do we think is going to happen in the second half? Or will something happen before the end of June? Something major. All right, so what do we think about this, folks? The regulators preparing for banks to collapse, John Deere outsourcing jobs, Bend, Oregon now lined up with a bunch of homeless and campers on the side of the road. John Deere outsourcing, I think I mentioned that. Anyways, thanks everybody for being here. We'll be back with another dose of economic reality for you very soon, probably tomorrow. Make sure you're still subscribed, and everybody keep stacking. Bye for now. Peace.